Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Persico. I'd like to welcome you all to Classic Jazz Visions, the photography of Jack Bradley. Jack Bradley was Louis Armstrong's photographer for about 11 years and was my friend for just about that long as well. We have put together a tribute. Hope you enjoy all the pictures. Most of these images have never been seen before or even developed. They go back to about 1958. And they end around 1970 with Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and just about everyone you can imagine. So, hope you all enjoy yourselves, and let's get started. I'm so nervous, I have to introduce the band for it. I've got the greatest job in the world. I've got the best band here, starting with our cornetist, Jeff Hughes. Our other cornetist is a friend of mine. We went to Berklee College of Music together back in the 70s, and in spite of that, we've been able to remain good friends. Phil Person. Our regular clarinet saxophone player, John Clark, couldn't be here tonight. He was doing 7 hours of German oompa music. Yeah, I wouldn't wish that. Anyway, he could not make it, but we have a wonderful clarinetist saxophonist, Dennis Cook. The young man, and I do mean young by decades, our drummer first time I played with him, he was probably about 14 or 15 years old. He is a wonderful drummer, Kareem Sanjagi. Our bass player is also one of our arrangers. He's arranged all of Laurie Colombo's music. She'll be with us tonight, our outstanding vocalist, Mike Ryle. And we are very lucky tonight to have this wonderful pianist sitting in with us, Greg Watson. Our narrator for the evening, introducing each chapter of Jack's life, is our local author, Mick Carlin.
Good evening, folks. Jack Bradley, born on Cape Cod in the village of Cotuit, you heard of it, in January 1934, was one of the most prolific and renowned of jazz photographers. In December 1959, backstage at Carnegie Hall, Jack met his idol, Louis Armstrong, and soon became one of Louis's closest friends. In Jack's words, "And to think that I went from listening to 78s of Louis's music at home to hanging out with the man himself in his Queens home was just unbelievable to me. Unbelievable, yes, but also true. And the proof is in the hundreds of exquisite photographs that Jack took of Louis over the years. Louis in performance, Louis backstage, Louis relaxing at home. Perhaps because Louis Armstrong loved and trusted Jack so very much that his guard was down and he could truly be himself in front of Jack's camera. At a party, Jack had just arrived in Manhattan. Jack met a young lady named Jean Phalos. Jean asked Jack, "Who's your favorite trumpet player?" "Louis Armstrong, of course," said Jack. "Oh, him," said Jean, who then turned and walked away. A moment later, though, Jean was back, a huge smile on her face. "I was only messing with you, Jack. I actually work for Pops. And if you were in the inner sanctum, that's what you called Louis, Pops." It was true. Jean Phalos worked in the office of Armstrong's manager, Joe Glazer, helping out with Louis's voluminous fan mail. Soon Jack and Jean were a couple, and Jack found himself at the Armstrongs' home in Corona, Queens. While Jean and Lucille Armstrong chatted downstairs, Jack and Louis were upstairs in Pops' study. Remembers Jack, "I was so nervous being in his presence that I was trembling. But Pops put his hand on my shoulder, smiled and said, 'Everything's cool, man. We're just two guys hanging out.' After that, my nerves vanished and I had a fantastic time. But that was Pops," said Jack. "He could put anyone at ease." Jack Bradley and his camera were welcome in the many jazz clubs that flourished in New York City in the late 50s and early 60s. Jack spent many a night at the Copper Rail, a legendary Times Square establishment right across the street from the Metropole Jazz Club. This was a different time for entertainment, with the artists and their audience dressed to the nines. Artists like Ruby Braff, Bobby Hackett, Red Allen, and Coleman Hawkins. But Jack Bradley was not only loved by jazz musicians because of his skill with a camera, Jack was also beloved because of his big heart and endless generosity. For example, in April of 1967, the legendary trumpeter Henry Red Allen passed away, leaving a bit of debt. Within hours, Jack was organizing a benefit concert that not only paid for Red's funeral, but also helped out his widow and grandchildren. Later, Louis Armstrong's adopted son, Clarence Armstrong, passed away. Clarence was the son of Louis's teenage cousin who had died young. For his entire life, Louis Armstrong looked after and supported Clarence. When Clarence died, it was Jack who once again raised the necessary funds to have Clarence buried with dignity. In addition, Jack convinced two great brassmen, Bobby Hackett and Ruby Braff, to move to Cape Cod. He worked tirelessly to promote their careers. As Ruby Braff once told me, Jack Bradley's heart is as big as his mouth.
Late every time that we have a date, but I love her. Yes, I love her. I'm gonna walk up to her gate and see if I can get this straight, 'cause I want her. I'm gonna ask her, is or is you ain't my lady. The way you treat me lately makes me down. Yours is still my baby, baby. Seems my flame in your heart's not gone out. Is a creature that has always been strange. Just when you think you know her, she's gone and changed. Is you
Although Louis Armstrong was Jack's favorite subject, Jack's camera was also at every single Duke Ellington recording session held in New York City in the 1960s. In the summer of '62, the Ellington Orchestra played an extended gig at Storyville, Cape Cod, a George Wein-owned club in Harwich. Wish it was still there. Jack's photos of a napping Duke, of Johnny Hodges playing in the sand with bandmates' children, of Paul Gonsalves frolicking in the surf, are some of the most delightful and unguarded photos ever taken of the Ellington Orchestra. One evening, Jack was backstage by the curtains watching the band play its first number. The piano chair, Duke's chair, was empty, a typical sight for the first song. Suddenly, a voice whispered in Jack's ear, "You don't know who I am, but I know who you are." It was Duke Ellington himself, who then glided past Jack to take his place at the piano and lead his band through yet another magnificent performance. That Duke, remembered Jack, was one mysterious cat.
eyes would be nice mothers. Thank you.
Greg Wardson.
Yes, beautiful.
That's Miss Lori Colombo. Jack spent over 15 years in New York City, returning to Cape Cod for good in 1976, where he documented such jazz greats as Bobby Hackett, Dave McKenna, Ruby Braff, Dick Johnson, and Cape Cod's godfather of jazz, the great Lou Colombo. Yeah. While on Cape Cod, Jack co-founded, along with the marvelous pianist Marie Marcus, the Cape Cod Jazz Society, which thrived for decades. The 1980 Cape Cod Jazz Festival, conceived and produced by, who else, Jack Bradley himself, opened in May of that year and is still talked about by local jazz fanatics. Lou Colombo, Jim Blackmore, Doc Cheatham, Vic Dickinson, Earl Father Hines, Scott Hamilton, Dick Johnson, Marie Marcus, Buddy Rich, and more graced the jazz clubs like the Columns and Storyville. In short, Jack Bradley helped to make Cape Cod a jazz paradise. And we have another song by the great Lori Colombo.
kissing you. Oh no, what'll I do? What will I do with just a photograph to tell all my troubles to? When I'm alone with only dreams of you that won't come true, oh, what'll I do? Oh, when I'm alone with only dreams of you that won't come true, oh, what'll I do?
What a band and what a singer. In 1965, Jack offered to drive Danny Barker back to his hometown of New Orleans. A teacher, a guitarist, a banjo player, a writer, a raconteur, Mr. Barker, with his wife Blue Lou, could do it all. He was also a passionate advocate for the traditional form of New Orleans music. Because he dove back into his community with relish, forming youth bands, teaching, and playing, music scholars agree that Danny Barker revived New Orleans' pride in its native music. For the trip down south, Jack bought a copy of the famous Green Book, which pointed out restaurants, diners, and hotels that safely welcome black patrons. But I should have saved my money, remembered Jack. Danny Barker had the entire Green Book memorized. While in New Orleans, Jack heard that the Colored Waifs Home, the orphanage where a 12-year-old Louis Armstrong learned the rudiments of music, was to be torn down. Dashing over, Jack rescued a stairway railing just hours before the wrecking ball did its work. Today, that railing has a place of pride in the New Orleans Jazz Museum. A plaque reads, "Saved by Jack Bradley." Louis in his hometown of New Orleans. Jack also tried his hand at owning and running his own Manhattan jazz club, Bourbon Street at 118 West 48th Street. The club's motto, good old jazz and bayou cooking. Running for 2 years, Bourbon Street was known for its top-notch New Orleans-style food and for its top-notch music. Bourbon Street was limited to a two-piece band, being a rather small club. That didn't stop Jack from inviting others to sit in, sometimes having 4 or 5 musicians crowding the small stage to make some magic. Although Pops never played a show at Bourbon Street, he was often at his own table with his lovely wife, Lucille, digging the musicians such as Ellington trumpeter and violinist Ray Nance. Dan Morgenstern, one of the finest jazz writers and Jack's pal, would often be at the club with the legendary trumpeter Nat Face Lorber, who had acted as Dan's Virgil when he emigrated to the U.S. in 1947. Jack Bradley, jazz nightclub owner.
is the first 6 chapters of Jack's life. We are going to take a brief intermission so that you may go out and avail yourself of the libations that are yeah, I got my word a day dictionary, so I did cover this. We do have portraits for sale that Jack took, original prints. We are a 501 3C nonprofit company. All of our money goes to preserving Jack's legacy and travel that we're going to be doing some concerts soon. We are a very streamlined corporation. Our company jet is a Toyota, so it was we will be back in about 15 minutes, so thank you very much and enjoy.
Welcome back, folks. When my students read my novel, Travels with Lewis, which I dedicated to Jack, I'd have the man himself come speak to them. Right away, the teenagers picked up on Jack's honesty and slightly rebellious air. A mesmerizing speaker, Jack had the students in the palm of his hand, and take it from a 38-year veteran teacher, that isn't easy to do with teenagers, as he told tale after tale about his years with Louis Armstrong. One night, we were in a motel in Framingham, Massachusetts, Jack would say. Pops walked over to the mini fridge, opened it, and said to me, "Look, Jack, there are eggs, milk, and bacon in this fridge. I can cook up a feast if I'm hungry." With tears in his eyes, Jack would tell my students, Louis Armstrong was worshipped by millions, by presidents, by popes, by princes, but he never forgot his roots. He never forgot the poverty of his childhood. He never forgot where he came from. Like this world itself, jazz would be nothing without the ladies. There's Ella. There it is. That is the last photograph of Billie Holiday in performance. It was March of 1959 in Chicago. Who took that photograph? Jack Bradley. He died in July of that year. The poet and professor Sasha Feinstein talks with awe of being introduced to Ella by Jack Bradley backstage at the 1983 Newport Jazz Festival. I was at Jack's house 3 different times when the phone rang and it was Tony Bennett. Ella, Billy, Maxine Sullivan, Moms Mabley, Jules Brown, and our very own Lori Colombo, they all found a beautiful home in front of Jack Bradley's lens. is amazing. With the advent of bebop, Jack planted his flag in the camp of Louis Armstrong's generation. But as an artist, he always had his eye open for the perfect photograph. Mingus, Miles, Train, Brubeck, Desmond. These artists might not have been on Jack's turntable, but they certainly appeared in his lens. One afternoon, Jack was telling me that he never quite understood the allure of Miles Davis. "I just don't dig his sound," he said. "Even kind of blue?" I asked. "Yep," replied Jack. "I just don't dig it." Reaching into my teacher bag of tricks, I came up with what I thought was a pretty nifty simile. "Jack, the way I look at it is this. Louis Armstrong is like bright, beautiful sunshine, while Miles Davis is like lovely, filtered moonlight." "Hey, that's pretty good," said Jack. "You're not as dumb as you look." The next time I visited, Jack said, "You know, I gave Miles another try. I'm beginning to like him, but he'll never take the place of Pops." So true. No one will ever take the place of Louis Daniel Armstrong. boyish good looks? For a spell, Jack was the manager of the brilliant cornetist and guitarist Bobby Hackett. Like all jazz fans, Jack loved Bobby's exquisite sound. And like all of Bobby's friends, he loved the musician for his kindness and his legendary humor. For example, Bobby said that Boston's Irish Mafia should be renamed, you ready? The Murphia. That was pretty good. In 1976, when Bobby Hackett died in Chatham, there was not enough money to pay for a proper headstone. Jack once again came to the rescue, raising the necessary funds to purchase a fitting stone for this magnificent musician. Like his idol Lewis, Jack Bradley possessed a generous and giving soul. Bobby Hackett made easy listening records under the conduction of Jackie Gleason. They were bestsellers. Musicians, like all artists, bring nothing but joy and beauty into this world. Musicians, quite simply, make this world a better place. Jack's highest praise to a fellow jazz fan was that he or she is spreading the gospel. Well, here's Jack Bradley, both keeping the faith and spreading the gospel with these sterling photographs. These are the musicians who played jazz, who played swing, who played Dixie, who played bop. Guys and gals like the musicians here tonight, who are in every town in America playing and enjoying this glorious music and keeping it alive for future generations.
Carolina gave us Dinah. I'm the lucky one, beneath that Dixie sun. News is spreading about our wedding. I hear church bells ring. Here's the song my heart keeps singing. Is there anyone finer in the state of Carolina? If there is, then you know her, Joey. With those Dixie eyes blazing, how I'd love to see her gazing to the eyes of night. Every night shake with pride, because my dynamite changed your mind about me. Dinah, if she wandered to China, I would hop an ocean liner just to be with Dinah Lee.
After every show, Louis would just invite people back into his dressing room, sign autographs for hours. A lot of times people down in their luck would ask Pops for a $100 bill, and he'd had a roll of them to give to people. He was generous beyond belief. When faced with life's decisions, Jack often asked himself, what would Louis do? Considering that Armstrong was as kind, generous, and wise as he was gifted, it's not bad advice. Jazz music is one of America's greatest contributions to world culture, and Jack Bradley was there to capture, for all time, rare moments in the lives of such giants as Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, and many others. If he were here tonight, Jack would grow shy at all of this attention to his art. Yet Jack Bradley was an artist in every sense of the word, and we are all enriched by his legacy.
I see trees of green, red roses too, and I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, I see skies of blue, clouds of white, and a bright blessed day, and a dark sacred night. And I think to myself, oh, what a wonderful world. All the colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, and also the faces of the people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? Oh, you know the same. Oh, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. Oh, they'll learn so much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, Mark, and great voice in my piano. Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful, wonderful audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Gloria Colombo. Well, thank you very much. I hope you've all enjoyed your evening here as much as we have enjoyed performing for you. We will be back sometime in the new year. It's hard to believe it's going to be 2023. Seemed like only yesterday it was 1973. But just to let you know that we appreciate all your applause and your love and everything tonight. Let you know that we will be performing at the Louis Armstrong House Museum in Queens, New York, the end of April. We have a performance there, and we also have a performance at the other end of Long Island at the Vail Levitt Vaudeville Theater that has been refurbished. It's at the other end of Long Island, like the Hamptons end of Long Island, not the Queens end of Long Island, the other side. We'll do that, and then we'll be in Worcester at the end of May, at May 27th at the Brick Box Theater. We'll come to your house and play, bar mitzvahs, anything. So again, I'd like to thank you very much, and good night.